My name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, March 28th, and as you might be able to tell, it is a nice sunny day. Pretty windy out there, so you might hear some big blusters. But of course, sitting in the sunroom, the wind is not a problem, and I get all of the benefits of the sun, which is great. You'll laugh. So I did have a listen back at last week's video, and you really couldn't hear as much as the kids as I was afraid of. And as I was setting up for this week's video, I laughed because I could hear the kids again. I went, well, here we go again. At least this time I know it's not going to be, too terribly loud, except that then they marched off to the playground. So at the moment, I'm sure they're off having fun, but they're not having fun loudly next door. If you are a new viewer to my channel, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me, and I hope that you enjoy what you see. If you are a returning viewer, I truly appreciate that the time you spend with me and come back and watch my videos. I know lots of Flosstubers say it, and being someone who watches a lot of Flosstube, I think at the beginning I was like going, oh, sure, you appreciate it. And the answer is no, we really appreciate it. We appreciate the time that you spend watching our videos and the stitching that we're doing and the comments and the questions that you share. When we say that we truly appreciate that, we really do. And with that, I hope everybody's had a good week. I hope everybody's safe and healthy and all the good things. I'm terribly jealous of the people who are showing, being outside in shorts and in gardens with plants and things like that, because there's still a lot of snow in my yard. I did snow this week. Didn't really stay, not enough snow that I had to shovel anything, but still, certainly not, well, for me, certainly not shorts weather, and certainly not weather to get out and do anything in the garden with. And with that, I'm pretty sure you didn't come to hear about all of my gardening woes. We're going to get on with the stitching. And if you've seen the topic for today, so today's topic, let's talk My Big Toe March Wrap-Up-ish. And the ish is, of course, because it's only March 28th. There's 3 more days. Okay, technically for me, there's 4 stitching days left in March because I have not stitched on my big toe today. But given the things that I want to talk about over the next few weeks, this is really where the March wrap-up needs to occur. So I'm calling it the March wrap-up, although you're going to see the March projects again next week, because that's just how it works. Funny how the months don't necessarily cooperate with my video schedule. So with that, I'm going to lead off with my glorious focus piece for this month, which is The Work of Christmas by My Big Toe. That one. So if you're new to my channel, for 2021, I'm starting a new focus piece every month. So here is, so far, by the 28th, well, it's actually really the 27th because I haven't stitched today. Here's where I've gotten to. So again, so I started this on March 1st. I am a center stitcher on this particular chart just because of how the layout worked out. Anyway, la la la. So all the bottom half of the words are done. So this week what I did was I finished this motif here except for this chunk here. And you may be wondering why I left that chunk unfinished. And there's a very specific reason why I left that chunk unfinished, because the stitching in this motif here is the number of stitches that I can get out of one entire skein of Weeks Dye Works. So I do have 2, and I bought them at the same time because the chart said get 2, and you will need to. I don't I actually don't know if it's used in the top half, but for sure I'll need another one just to get this little bit here. But I'm using this opportunity, and while this video is uploading, I'm going to stop and I'm going to count the stitches in this particular motif, because then that will say to me how many stitches I can get out of a skein of Weeks Dye Works on 28 count over 2 threads. So I've also had a look at this one over here, and I think it will work out to be the same. So I will actually, again, once I finish this motif with one skein, I don't think I will necessarily get all of it completed. I will then stop and count how many stitches are in there, and we'll see how close I come. So you can find online estimators as to, you know, if your chart calls for X number of stitches, how many skeins you will need. But as we all know, everybody stitches differently. Some people are really fantastic and can get an amazing amount of usage out of their thread. Other people are not, maybe not as careful. You know, 12 reasons to how they stitch whatever. Like there's 47 reasons why stitch counts can be different. And what these two motifs down here are going to do for me is they are going to give me a really good opportunity to find out sort of what my thread usage is on 28 count even weave with Weeks Dye Works. So yeah, I'll have 2 options there, and I'll see. I will report back once I've done the counting. But not bad, again, not bad progress for this in the month of March. You know, it's my usual sentence. I always would like to get more done, but not bad progress in the month of March, given this was not my, it was my focus piece, but not my only piece. And so again, so I've got 4 more days of stitching on this, and really what I'm hoping to do is to finish this motif. And if I finish, well, I'll finish that motif and I'll come back and finish this one. And if I've still got stitching time left, I'll probably work on a couple of the small motifs down here at the bottom. Not going to do the center one because, again, what's currently in my head, the pattern calls for Weeks Dye Works Onyx, which is pretty black. I don't know that I want black. So I'm contemplating doing it in multiple colors that show up in the other motifs in this design. But check back next year when I get back to this. So with that, this is my, yeah, there we go. So that's, I'm trying that this is going to be the screen capture for this week's video for my big toe. So that's where I got to on that one. Okay. And of course, because we are still in the season of Lent, I am working on my Lent project, which is Jerusalem by Thea Gouverneur. Again, so this was another center start. So I'm working on this building here, the Church of All Nations. It's really nice because, you know, I don't have to pay that much attention because, you know, for the entire season of Lent, it will be the Church of All Nations that I'm working on. Haven't managed to make it onto any of the other buildings in this particular chart, which is fine. So the thing about my Lent project is that I am, sorry, I was just noticing an interesting thread on the back of my thing. Anyway, we'll deal with that. I am only spending 30 to 60 minutes a day on this. So yeah, I know I said that I was gonna try to work on filling in these columns here. And remember how I said check back next week to see if I actually did that, because I don't, And the answer is I clearly didn't do that. Now, when I sat down to work on it on the Monday after the video, I very much looked at it and said, okay, let's maybe work on getting this filled in because I think that would feel great. except that I looked in there and went, oh yeah, I remember why you didn't do those. And because I'm a little bit neurotic about numbers, so I counted. So there's like 9 separate colors in here to fill that in. And again, because I'm time limited, I'm giving myself this time limit every day as to how much time I'm spending on this particular project. I wanted to make more progress. So I finished filling in the arch over here and extending it back over into this page. So you can see I was only going to work on, you know, my one designated page, which, you know, failed at that anyway. That's why I go, it's always nice to say, I think this is what I'm going to do in the following week, and then it really is check back next week, because that may not be what I do at all. So filled that in, spent some more time filling in some colors up here in the top part. So yeah, again, I think I'm happy with the progress that I've made on this over the course of this Lenten season. And after the first little bit, you know, I've enjoyed working on it, and, you know, looking at the other things, I would like to spend more time on it. But again, this is another project. I'm going to work on it until the end of Lent. And then this chart, this particular piece is going away, as far as I know, not to be seen again in 2021. I know, hard to believe. Hence why I need to work on my 2020-22 plan. Anyway, so that is Jerusalem. And then, of course, we still have, I know, I never thought that this far into 2021 I would still be talking about the never-ending nativity, but we're still talking about the never-ending nativity. So still working on the center panel, but at least we've moved up to the top half, the Bethlehem star. So this one, again, I sort of followed the plan. Hang on. I think I forgot to bring that piece in. Hang tight for a second. Talk about being ill-prepared for your video. But I laughed because I was watching Priscilla and Chelsea's video from Saturday, and they were like, we're not stopping in editing because it really changes the amount of time it takes to upload, and it does. As soon as you do the editing, the uploading time goes up quite a bit. So here's where I got to. So what I'd said was I was going to outline some sections and fill them in, and when I started to work on it, I went, forget that. Just do, you know, so I finished all of the outlining of this darker color here. So everywhere where this color is called for has been completed. Technically, there is one X here in the middle of nowhere, which I went, I'll come back and fill that in later. But yeah, so I'm happy with that. You may not be able to tell, but I actually didn't have all of the outlining done over here. So all of that has been completed. And what I think I'm going to do this week, because there's still more Krynic to go. We all know how much I love Krynic. Not that, actually, we're at the part now where I can handle the Krynic, but apparently I've really just got the habit going that I whine and complain about Krynic. Here comes Krynic. So there are rays coming out here, you know, replicas of the ones that are coming out over here from the pink angel. So because I don't necessarily love sitting down and doing Krynic, and because I have done all of this outlining over here, so all of the outside stitches are now complete over here. So what I'm planning on doing is doing like one of the rays. So do one entire ray, come back and fill in with a color, then do another one of these rays, come back in and do another color, because then at least that way, you know, when I was doing the star, it's like, okay, there's just like, you know, Krynic nonstop, so let's just get this over with. So I was like, I'm only doing Krynic as I came down the star, But for while I'm on this part, I think I'm going to do some Krynic, DMC, Krynic, DMC. But as I said, check back next week, because it's always great to have a concept of how you think your stitching week is going to shape up. And then there's what really happens over the course of a week. So that's what I have gotten accomplished on my 3 pieces for this week. Let's talk plans. So my plans for this week, I've kind of covered that. Stitch on the 31st until on the My Big Toe one. And then as soon as we hit April 1st, we're going to start another focus piece. So April 1, new month, new start. I'm not telling you what it is. You're going to have to come back next week and see what that is. I have several people in my world, in my stitching world, who know what's coming, and they're most interested to see how it goes. As am I. We'll see how it goes. So My Big Toe till the 31st, which means Thursday, Friday, Saturday will be the April new project. I will be stitching on the Lent project all the way through next Sunday, April the 4th, which is Easter Sunday. Technically, Easter Sunday is not part of Lent, but I am going to choose to wrap up my Lent season on Easter Sunday with spending an hour before I get on this video. Before I do the recording next week, I'm going to spend the hour and work on Jerusalem, so that when I show you Jerusalem next week, you will see where I'm ending my work on that particular chart for this calendar year, based on what the 2021 stitching plan is. Although, as I said, I'm working on the 2022 stitching plan, and Jerusalem might have to factor into that. So that's the stitching plan. Stashquisitions. So this is part of the, I mentioned this a number of weeks ago, that I had ordered a bunch of things from my LNS, had gotten them, but I was going to dole them out over a number of weeks. That is continuing, and from my LNS, so I, just in case anybody was wondering, I have successfully returned the chicken chart back to traditional stitches, and I have been led to believe that more of my back-ordered items are coming imminently, so I might have them for next week's video. It might not be until the week after that. Still not the Picture This Plus. The Picture This Plus, which I ordered in September, which is totally fine by me. I'm totally fine with that. And again, like the fabric dyers, like all of them are just having a terrible time, and I feel so badly for them. But anyway, so the Stashquisitions for this week are not counting towards my Stitch from Stash, because I bought them and paid for them last year. But so this factors into, so last week when I showed you the bead packs that I bought from European Cross Stitch for the Chatelaine Designs, again, there was a lot of discussion in the groups, which kind of freaked me out. So I also, not only did I go get those, but I had gone and I went, there might be Swarovski products in the Mill Hill Treasures that I need for my Mirabilia stash. Mirabilia / Nora Corbett, of which I have a large collection. So I dutifully spent a lot of time going through my charts, the Mill Hill, so not beads, treasures. So my concern was about Mill Hill Treasures. So I went through those charts, very specifically the Nora Corbett Mirabilia ones, because they are so Mill Hill Treasure intensive. So I went through those, looked at what I had already got in my stash, and went through the rest of them and went, what treasures do I have left to get? So in some cases, so again, this is going to go over 2 weeks. So in some cases, it turned out not only did I not have the the treasures, I didn't have any of the beads for them. So in that case, so Mirabilia / Nora Corbett, you can actually get bead packs for their charts. And so in those cases where I didn't have any of the beads or any part of it, I just went, just get the bead pack. So here are the bead packs that I got. So this is Shakespeare's Fairies. And I will tell you right now, I'll never do it on the called for fabric. If you want to do something interesting, Google Mirabilia Shakespeare's Fairies and look at the images that come up, because I showed it to another friend of mine. You know, she's like, it's okay, but I don't really like it. And I showed her some of the pictures on the web of other people's where they've done it on different fabric. She's like, oh my goodness, that changes it entirely. And I went, yeah. And that's what sold me on this one. I was in the same camp. Didn't really like it until I saw it on something else. Long story for a bead pack. But again, this is an interesting one because, so I had ordered the bead pack, and there's a note in here that one of the treasures, so treasure 12211 is no longer available, and they tell you what they've replaced it with. So again, so this goes back into, see now, 118, I don't even know which one that is. Anyway, so this is, you know, when I was having my little freak out, and I did talk to Janice at Traditional Stitches, and she reached out to Witchelt and said, you know, they weren't really planning on discontinuing any of their stuff. But again, you can see, for whatever reason, you know, one of the treasures from this particular chart is no longer being produced, and they have made a substitute for it. So again, this is why I had my moment and went, oh my goodness, buy the treasures now for the charts that you have now for the day 12 years from now, when I'm going to start working on that. Anyway, so I also got, so this is Portrait of Veronica. I know, very glary in the bag, but, and when you go into the Mirabilia Facebook groups, like Portrait of Veronica is just lovely, 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 lovely. And then, you know, because I have a problem with houses, so Nora Corbett is doing this sort of series, and I think she's done all of the houses for this series. I think it's complete now. Somewhere along the line when it was first coming out, she kind of said there were going to be 6 of them, and I think they've all been released now. 5 of them are in this color palette range, and the 6th one is pink. So I did not get the pink one. Although if I were really smart, I should go have a look at the pink one and see if I just changed the colors, if it would then go with the rest of them. But, so this was an example where I had picked up the charts, but I didn't have any of the beads for them. So I ordered the bead packs. So this is the bead pack for Mr. Darby's house. This is the bead pack for the coffee house. And this is the bead pack for the Gothic house, because, you know, as I've said, I've got a bit of a house problem. So yes, so there's crossover between these. So whether or not I whoops. Somebody's open here. I'll have to solve that. Anyway. Oh, there it is. Bead pack falling apart. Solved. So there's crossover between the colors, so whether or not I really necessarily needed to buy the bead packs, I might need to check that out, but that's what I shopped for. That's what I got because I was having a little bit of a fit towards the end of last year about Mill Hill treasures. Let me pick these up and put them. Now I have to be very careful with this because otherwise I will never be able to figure out how this goes. Okay, so those are my Stashquisitions. Graciously don't count towards my Stitch from Stash budget. So my Stitch from Stash report for this week is totally as expected. So upside, I have not spent anything. I do have a friend. She's been shopping for a few things. She has shown me those things. They're somewhat tempting, I have to say, but I very successfully said no, but I've, same thing with Needlework Expo. I was largely successful that I did not overspend for Needlework Expo, but there's probably about 8 charts that I really liked from Expo that I have not purchased. I have them on a list. So I'm just going to keep a running list of the things that I would like, but I'm also trying to temper the shopping with, other things going really, again, trying to be intentional about my spending. Intentional about my spending and intentional about my plan, because the reality is, I can't stitch everything. I know that I can't stitch everything that I have in my stash that I currently have, and that's okay too. I was part of a conversation this week where someone was like, why would you ever buy the chart if you have no intention of ever stitching it? And the answer is because you love the chart. You love the chart. You wish you were the type of person who would stitch it, but you won't. But I love the chart. I have a Heaven and Earth design chart that I think is fantastic. I bought it on a sale. I have it in my stash. And sometimes I go and I look at the chart. And I look at the chart and go, it would be beautiful. It would be stunning. But I'm never going to do it. And so I just look at the chart and I look at the pages and I go like, yeah, this is why I was never going to do it. But I enjoy looking at the chart. And again, it brings me joy. I'm happy I bought the chart. I know I'm never going to stitch it. That's not the point. But trying to be intentional about what I'm doing and be realistic and all sorts of things. So Stitch from Stash, successfully did not spend any money on Stash this week. Unfortunately, I have not finished anything, and as you can tell, I'm nowhere close to a finish on any of the things I've just shown you. Not my focus piece for March, clearly not Jerusalem, and not even the Never-Ending Nativity. So my expectations, so next week in my video I will report on my March totals that I'm reporting into my Stitch from Stash group. I'm expecting I'm going to end the month in the negative, in the hole. Again, in the group that I'm in, it's not a problem if you finish the month in the hole. You just need to be in the black by the end of June. Surely by the end of June, I will have finished one of the halves, either the top half or the bottom half of the Never-Ending Nativity. And as soon as I finish that, I'm back in the black. We're all good. So I'm not worried that I'm going, at the moment, because I've been good about my spending, I am not expecting that I'm going to, again, because I have a financial background, not only am I doing the current month, I'm doing my projection out to the end of June. Forecasting, anyway, whatever. So I expect that by the end of June, I will be able to be in the black, in the group, will have stayed within budget. So that's all very positive, which is why I'm part of that group. But check back, because as you noticed, the spending that I did in March, I did not foresee coming. I don't regret it. I'm very happy with my purchases, but wasn't part of the expected plan. Now, the other interesting thing is while I'm working on my 2022 plan, in order to get ready for 2022, I may need to kit up some things. So again, I'm planning on being a part of Stitch from Stash for the entire calendar year, all the way through 2021, which means, again, so this factors into why I need to be working on my 2022 plan, is because if I need anything for my 2022 plan, it's going to have to somehow fit into my 2021 budget. So we'll see how that goes. Working on that. At the moment, not that any of you would know, but I think I've slightly tweaked my July plan. So, come back in July, see what happens. I'll tell you whether I stuck with the and I've said this before, for all of my months, I've always had a plan A, a plan B, and in some cases a plan C. So it's not like there's a shortage of things to stitch, but anyway. And with that, I think that's all I have to talk about this week. So this is a shorter video than some of the last couple of weeks. Oh, questions. Sorry, I forgot that one. So I did respond to there was a question on last week's video about the type of fabric that I recommend using for the silks. So because over the last 2 weeks I've done 2 different companies that hand dye silk products, the question came in last week, what's the type of fabric that I recommend to use silks on? And the answer is, I don't know that you should follow the recommendation. So it depends. My answer is it really depends on what you enjoy stitching on. So the type of silks that I was showing, so the Silks for You and the Dyeing for Cross Stitch, those products, I would say those are not necessarily geared towards canvas work like I showed in February, but you can use it on just about anything. The only thing is the smaller, this is where the numbers get weird. So when you do a smaller count fabric, so as you go from like 28 count down to 25, 20, 18, 16, 14, you know, I watched someone this week who was stitching on 8 count fabric for a very specific reason. As you get into the smaller counts, thread counts, you know, 16, 14, 8, that's where I think the silk doesn't necessarily work as well, just because you need more strands, and I don't think it bulks up as well as some of the other products that are on the market for those types of counts. Now again, I base my answers based on my personal preferences and the stitching experience that I have. So generally, I have only ever used silk threads on 28 count, 32 count, and 36 count, either even weaves, which in my world means Lugana or Jobelin, or linens. So they're all totally fine on that, based on conversations I've had with friends who stitch in some of those higher counts. The products that I was showing, I think you could take it all the way up to a 40 count, where you would be using 1 strand over 2 threads. But when you start to get above 40 count, you know, for those crazy, lovely people who stitch on 46 count or 52 count, or, you know, any of those like really insanely, you know, really high thread counts, even if you strand them down to a single strand, I don't think they necessarily would work as well. So even in things like, so I know in the Glorianas, you've got the regular Gloriana silk products, but they've also got Floramel, and they've got Tudor silks. In the Soie d'Alger range, like there's Soie d'Alger, which I've used, there's 103, which I have used as well. But the 103s, you know, generally you get better coverage on like 40 count plus. Some people do it on 37, 38 count, and they're totally fine with the coverage. Again, coverage is a personal choice. It's up to you. But so those are some things to think about. Again, my recommendation is if you are new to silks, buy 1 skein of something that you think you will enjoy stitching with. I always recommend do a variegated, not necessarily. Do a variegated or solid, something that you really, the color that you really enjoy. Choose one of those smaller charts, AK like ink circles, or you can find a lot of them on Etsy. There are some JBW designs that would be perfect for that, so that you're not doing a large investment to see whether you enjoy working with it or not. And again, I've said this before, There are people who don't enjoy working with it. There are people who think, you know, everything should be done in silk, and that's great too. There are people who go like, you know, why would I spend my budget on that when I can get DMC? And to me, it looks about the same. All fair. Your project, your happiness, your joy, your hobby, your time, your effort. Do what makes you happy. So try it out. It may be for you. It may not be for you. It could be, you know, the rabbit's hole where you go like, oh my goodness, how could I ever go back to stitching with anything else? But my budget doesn't really like me to spend, you know, to kit everything up in silks. Yeah, that happens too. And sometimes you just have to go DMC. It will be just fine. It will look lovely in DMC. Everybody's got budget things that they've got to work within. So those are my recommendations. When I say start with a small project, the answer is be very, very careful about your stitch count. So again, let's bring it back out again one more time, right? So this is where I'm going. I need to count this because this is the number of stitches that I can get out of one skein of Weeks Dye Works. Now, what I think this will allow me to do is it will allow me to conceptually sort of figure out how much I can get out of a skein of other things based on this. I can do the math around that. But again, you know, if this is one skein of Weeks Dye Works, you know, that's about the same as you would get out of a skein of Dinky Dyes, or I want to say a skein of Soie d'Alger, but I have not checked the math on that, so don't quote me on that. So just be really careful when I say one skein will get you, you know, X amount of stitches. So again, be very, very careful. Read your pattern very carefully, because there are some of them where you go like, oh, this looks like a really nice small pattern, and they go, congratulations, you need 5 skeins of, you know, whatever it is in order to complete this. So small, when I say start small, I really mean start small. Do your count, figure out what you can do. Don't go too big, because I think you'll run out of silk too fast. So if it's a solid, like if it's a Soie d'Alger or a needlepoint ink silk, you'll be fine. If you're getting silk from Gloriana or Dinky Dyes or Thread Gatherer, again, because of their dyeing process, you're not guaranteed that it's going to come out exactly the same. And I can see that in my own stash, where I've got skeins that they're called the same thing, and they're sort of similar, but they are not identical. And that's what happens. And that's why everybody says multiple times, like, if you need multiple skeins of those things, you need to buy them at the same time so that they're coming from the same dye lot, so they look the same. So all of that to say, I use silks on 28, 32, 36 count because that's what I like to stitch on. If you like to stitch on something else, it may work for you. Again, I get a little hesitant once you get, you know, if you're doing a lower count fabric than 14, that's where I get a little bit, I don't know how it's going to cover. But trial and error, stitch on what you enjoy. All right, and with that, I hope you have a great week. I hope everybody is safe. I hope everybody is healthy. I hope the weather where you are is turning into some really nice springtime, glorious weather. I'm getting really excited. Sunshine, less snow, warm weathers. I'm in the sunroom. You know how happy, sun heat, I get happy with those things. Again, so stay safe, stay healthy. Find some time to do some stitching, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good week, guys.